Once more, good evening and welcome to another cloud computing session with Tidemi with focus on AWS. So in this session, we'll be talking about IAM roles. In our previous video, we have seen the general overview of identity and access management. We have practically demonstrated or explained how IAM user group, IAM permissions, and IAM users are, and we have created those entities, and also we have been able to programmatically access our AWS resources by the help of access key and the AWS CLI version 2. So today our focus will be on IAM rules, and moving straight into the point, when you must have logged into your AWS console. As of now, I'm still using my root account, but it's advisable not to use your root account for day-to-day operation. Create an IAM user with administrator access and use. So I've logged into my AWS management console. As you can see, I'm just going to search or navigate to my IAM dashboard. Now, while it's opening, IAM, which stands for recap, IAM, which stands for Identity and Access Management, it is the most popular identity service when it comes to the AWS management, the AWS platform. It offers the creation of user group, users, permissions, you know, uh, organization, alias, multi-factor authentication, creation of access key, password policy configuration. Those are some of the things that you can see on your identity and access management dashboard. So to your left, directly under access management, you can locate rules. So we click on rules. So rules are basically temporal permission that can be used by an IAM user or can be used by another AWS service, which we are going to see. So when you click on rule, to your right, you can locate the create rule button, which you can just click on it. So there are basically 5 different trusted entity type when you're creating a rule that you can make your choice from. The first and the most common, for that, the first and the most common, which is AWS service, simply means you can create a rule to be used by an AWS service like an EC2 or Lambda. You can create a rule to be used by another AWS account, which can be a root account, or that's another AWS account or a particular IAM user still attached to this present account I'm using. You can create a rule to be used by federated access. That simply means single sign-on, which means you have an account on Cognito, Facebook, or Google, and you want to use it to access different services on AWS. And also the two below are, custom trust policy, which can enable you to perform what other action in this account, or use the SAML 2.0 for federation access. But our focus will be on basically the AWS service and AWS account. So today I'm going to demonstrate on how you can create a role to be used by another AWS service like EC2. So when you're here, you select AWS service. So below you need to select the type of AWS service that you want to attach this role to. Okay, let's say the most common is EC2. It can be Lambda or any other thing of your choice. So let's say we go for EC2. Okay, EC2 is a compute service. Okay, we are going to discuss that in future. You click on next. Now on the next page, we need now to add a permission to this role. Remember, when you create a role that needs to be used by a service or another AWS and IAM entity, you need to attach a policy. A policy is a document, a permission document. Okay, so here you need to decide what exactly can that service do with this role. A service can be able to communicate with S3 by having full S3 access. A service can be able to communicate with a database by having full access to a particular database or to do a particular read or write operation. A service can be able to communicate with container services, or let's say uh, Route 53. These are different AWS services that if I create this role and attach to a particular service and also attach some of these permissions, that service will be able to communicate with those other services by the help of this role. So let's say for today we want to attach to this whole Amazon full access, which simply means that EC2 that is going to use this role will be able to communicate with an S3 bucket or the S3 bucket on our account and do whatever thing they want to do with S3 bucket on our account. Remember, after the creation of a role, you need to attach that role to the EC2 that wants to use this role. If not, they will not be able to communicate with this particular S3 bucket in our account, and so on for all other services. So you can choose, many permission policy as you wish, but for now we'll go with just one, just for demonstration purposes. We scroll down and we click next. Now on the next page, you need to give your role a name. So let's call it EC2 S3 full access. Then this is the description below. You can modify the description if you want. Under trusted entity, it basically tells you what this role can do. It simply means that this role is what allow we to do what EC2 is good. This role is allow. It has an allow effect because there are basically two types of effect. You either allow something or you deny. Okay, the action is to assume, which simply means any EC2 that this role is attached to will be able to assume this role. And what is a principal? Now, principal is the entity that can assume this role, which in our case we have stated there that any EC2 on the AWS console or on Amazon AWS.com can be able to do what? To use this role, can assume this role. That is the meaning of this trust policy. So when you are done here, you simply do what? You simply click on create rule and you give it some time. So that is it. Our rule has been created. You click on view. You can view the rule. As I said, anything you create on AWS, it comes with a unique ARN, that is an Amazon resource name, the creation date, okay, the instance profile, last activity, as you can see here. By default, the maximum session that a role is valid is 1 hour, and these are the permission attached to this rule. Okay, you can as well modify the permission, the duration if you want by clicking on edit. You go here, you can go with 2 hours or you customize. Okay, that is how you can modify the duration of a role. And take note, don't forget, after you create a role, you need to do what? You need to go attach it to any of those services. Like for example, in our case, we have to select EC2. Okay, in the next video, I'm going to show you how to do that. So that is basically how to create a role. Even if it's a role that needs to be used by another account, you come here, IAM, you create a role, you choose the entity type. If it's to be used by a service, you choose this. If it's used by another account, you choose this. If it's a federated something based on these three providers, you choose this and so on. You go next, you add the permission, you give it a name, and you create your role. So that is a summary, or that's a little hard for you for today when it comes to roles under the IAM dashboard. Stay tuned while I take you to another video where we are going to see how we can attach this role to an EC2, for example, and make it communicate with an S3 or any other services on the AWS platform based on the permission being attached to. Thank you, stay tuned, and bye for now.